Thomas Jefferson was born on April 13th, 1743, in Shadwell, Virginia. His father was a farmer and a land surveyor who would die when young Thomas was 14 years old. At the age of 16, the young Jefferson attended the College of William and Mary. The first year of college, Jefferson was pretty much a goof-off. He would spend his time dancing and having fun. He later realized that this was probably not the best for his future and became a disciplined student. He graduated in 1762 and read law under George Wythe. In 1767, he was admitted to the bar. From 1769 to 1775, he was a representative in the lower house of the Virginia Assembly. While in the Assembly, Jefferson pursued reforms to slavery, but all attempts failed. Jefferson also defended slaves seeking freedom at no charge, even though he was a slaveholder himself. In 1768, he began building his residence in Monticello. In Italian, Monticello means little mountain. Monticello is just outside of Charlottesville, Virginia. In 1772, he would marry his third cousin, Martha Skelton, who was a 23-year-old widow. At the beginning of the Revolutionary War in 1775, the founders felt that a formal declaration of independence was needed. They should address the reasons why America should be a self-governing nation. A group of 5 were selected to write the document. They were John Adams from New York, Thomas Jefferson from Virginia, Ben Franklin from Pennsylvania, Roger Sherman, Connecticut, and Robert Livingston from New York. From June 11, 1776, till June 28, 1776, Jefferson wrote the Declaration of Independence on his own from his rented home in Philadelphia. On July 1, 1776, the debate began on the contents of his document. Approximately 25% of Jefferson's document was altered from his original text. Jefferson fumed at every change that was made. On July 4, 1776, the Declaration was ratified. Jefferson later became governor of Virginia from 1779 to 1781. As governor, Jefferson used the Virginia militia to subdue both Loyalist and Native American uprising. Jefferson himself had no military experience. As governor, he would move the capital from Williamsburg to Richmond so Britain could not easily attack by sea. He moved the capital again when Benedict Arnold attacked Richmond and destroyed the city. Charlottesville was now the capital of Virginia. The British attempted to capture Jefferson at Monticello, which is just outside of Charlottesville, but Jefferson escaped again. Amazingly, the British did not ransack Monticello. They did, however, drink all his wine that Jefferson had stored there. After his governorship, he was appointed to be Minister of France in 1785. Later, Washington appointed him to be our first Secretary of State. Jefferson would lose his presidential bid to John Adams. Jefferson received the second most votes and became vice president. As vice president, there was a constant clash between himself and Hamilton. They disagreed over state debts. Hamilton wanted to assume all state debts and create a national bank. Jefferson opposed this. Hamilton wanted the capital to be in the North. Jefferson opposed that. An agreement was reached that the capital would be located on the Potomac and the government would assume state debts. The fight was about how strong the federal government should become. They also had different views on what type of society we should have. Jefferson wanted an agricultural rural society, Hamilton wanted a commercial economy as the main source of income in a society that was more metropolitan. Jefferson played little role when he was in the Senate as vice president, casting only 3 tie-breaking votes. Jefferson would resign his cabinet position at the end of Washington's term. He was tired of the constant fighting with Hamilton, and he thought he would be more effective from the outside. Jefferson also saw Hamilton as behind the Alien and Sedition Acts, hugely unpopular acts that suppressed free speech and even fined and imprisoned those who opposed the government. In the election of 1796, Thomas Jefferson was in a rematch with John Adams. Jefferson picked Aaron Burr to be his running mate, and John Adams picked Charles Pinckney. Jefferson from the South picked a Northerner. Adams from the North picked a Southerner. Thomas Jefferson and Aaron Burr each received 73 votes. Since the 12th Amendment had not yet been passed, stating which of the two people would be president and which would be vice president, it was up to the House to decide. After 35 votes, Jefferson finally was elected. Jefferson received 73 votes and Adams got 65. Jefferson's wife died in 1782 at the young age of 33. At the request of his wife, Jefferson never married again. So Jefferson asked his friend's wife, Dolly Madison, the wife of James Madison, who would later become our 4th president, to be the White House hostess, and by all accounts, she did a great job. On his last days in office, Adams tried to pack the court with Federalists, which led to the Supreme Court case of Marbury versus Madison. This is a video in and of itself, but just quickly, it stated that due to the Supremacy Clause, Congress has no authority through ordinary means to modify the Constitution. Although Jefferson did not want out-of-control military spending, he did have to deal with the Barbary pirates off the coast of North Africa, who were seizing our ships and capturing our sailors. Jefferson also saw the need for a trained professional military and created West Point to develop a professional military. While in office, Jefferson pardoned some of the people who unjustly went to jail over the Alien and Sedition Acts. He also was not obsessed with trying to reverse every policy the Federalists had implemented. In 1803, Jefferson peacefully doubled the size of America through the Louisiana Purchase. He purchased the land for $15 million, or $18 per square mile. In today's money, that is approximately $400 million, or about $500 per square mile. This area includes what is today almost 15 states. Jefferson wanted the land not only to increase America's size, but to reduce the influence of the Europeans. Jefferson was fearful that our westward expansion would be thwarted by the powers in Europe. Napoleon, for his part, needed the money due to the wars in Europe. Some, however, were not convinced. There were constitutional issues. Would these be free slaves or slave states? With all the westward expansion, would this diminish the influence of the eastern states? Further, why are we borrowing money from the British and the Dutch to buy land that we do not need? The slavery issue was solved in the following way. Maine would be brought in as a non-slave state, and Missouri would be brought in as a slave state. It also limited slavery above the 36-degree latitude line. As a strict constitutionalist, Jefferson was sure he was exceeding his authority under the Constitution. Some members in his cabinet felt it was legal under the authority the presidents had under treaties. The Senate passed the acquisition 24-7. Jefferson, the man who was a strict constitutionalist, by default increased the powers of the president. But wow, what a good deal. Jefferson phenomenally increased our westward expansion, even though he personally had never been west of Virginia. When we purchased the Louisiana Territory, we really didn't know the boundaries of it or what we exactly had, what resources were there, or anything of the sort. Jefferson appointed Lewis and Clark to explore the region. The election of 1804 was between the Democratic-Republican Thomas Jefferson and his vice presidential pick, George Clinton, who was the former governor of New York. They were running against the former governor of South Carolina, Charles Pinckney, and his running mate, Rufus King, a senator from New York. Aaron Burr, Jefferson's former vice president, lost favor for three main reasons. The first, Jefferson wasn't sure what Burr's intentions were during their first election together in 1800. Burr had also been in a duel with Alexander Hamilton in July 1804 and would kill him. Hamilton was a popular founding father, and many people were angry at Burr for doing so. There were also weird rumors that were going around about Burr trying to revolt and overthrow a state or even the federal government. He was arrested for treason but was later acquitted. Jefferson would easily be re-elected, receiving 162 electoral votes to Pinckney's 14. Jefferson also paid down much of our national debt, from 83 million to 57 million. The last thing we must address is whether Jefferson fathered children with Sally Hemings, his slave and half-sister. It seems plausible, however, the DNA evidence that many said proved Jefferson fathered her children is not entirely correct. The DNA evidence demonstrated that her children had DNA from a male member of the Jefferson line. It is known his younger brother played the violin at the slave cabins in the evening. 25 other male members of Jefferson's family lived in the area. It is unknown how many of these family members visited Monticello, but surely many did. Anyone who says they know for sure that he had children with Sally Hemings is at best being disingenuous. The last 17 years of his life was spent at Monticello. During his time at Monticello, he also formed the University of Virginia. Jefferson would die on July 4th, 1826, on the same day as John Adams, 50 years after the Declaration of Independence was signed. He died at the age of 83. His final words are unclear, but they are something like this: "Is this the 4th of July?" At one time, Thomas Jefferson may have been worth $200 million in today's money. It's almost impossible to know. However, we do know that he died in debt, and his grandson eventually paid it off. Thanks for listening.